Now, it's my pleasure to invite our speaker, and our speaker is none other than Dr. Nancy Mutonyi. Now, Dr. Nancy Mutonyi is a managing director of Zacon Consultants. Nancy is an organizational development consultant with an extensive career in management in the manufacturing sector. She's also an adjunct lecturer at the International Leadership University, ILU, and an executive fellow at Strathmore University. She has passion for transformational customer experience and change management, and has actively participated in organizational cultural change and continuous improvement programs. She possesses a doctorate degree in business administration from USIU African. Nancy, the floor is yours. Daktari, welcome and give us the discourse on the topic of today. Thank you, members, and good afternoon once again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ndegwa, for those very kind words, and also Brian for inviting me to be here with you today. I'm glad to be here among people I can talk to about some things that I like to share about every now and then in terms of my passion, which is managing change. And I hope I can interact with you a bit more after this, maybe, because I don't have much time today. I'll just go through what I have as priority to share today. As you have been told about the topic, I'm trying to share my screen. There we go. Let me know if it's obvious. You can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Yes, so managing change in the dynamic environment. So as starting off with the discussion, I just want to say that this topic must not be discussed only once, but continuously. And as Mr. Moiti was saying earlier, change is something that is permanent. You can never avoid change. And as in our lives and our own business lives, we have to think of how we manage change to be able to achieve the things we have set apart for ourselves to achieve, our goals and objectives. So I like beginning like how our friend began with a small quote here. I found a quote this morning when I was going through my work, and I was wondering, how can I inspire my team today, at KIM, to just think about change? And I found this very, very interesting quote that simply says that turbulence is often an indication that things need to change. And I thought to myself, wow, who's the author? I couldn't find the author because it was part of a small thing I read in the morning for devotion. And I realized this is a very, very powerful quote, because look at the first and the last words, they're in yellow and highlight, turbulence and change. So I realized turbulence as we know it is not always a very, very bad thing. It says here, it indicates the need for action. And if you all know ourselves as human beings, we don't like changing, do we? Don't like changing and getting turbulence, because we think about turbulence or something changing around as disturbing us and causing us to discomfort. If you're a frequent flyer, you know what I mean. You're always told, okay, you face some turbulence, so please get to your seat and tie your belt. And then of course the thing starts to shake, and that is very, very uncomfortable. After seeing this quote, I realized it's true. Turbulence is not a negative thing all the time. It can help us indicate what needs to change. And that's why I thought I should share it with you to inspire you as I begin just setting over the today's discussion content. Before I go any further, I want to just share that it's been said in many forums that the era we are living in currently right now has been the most turbulent ever known in the history of the world. And I hope you can agree with me. Not just the last 2 or 3 years, but the last few decades. Never has the world seen such turbulence as we're talking about turbulence now. And people who see us and wonder who were there before, they wonder how we're doing it, Not just in our lives, even in our own work, our business, our social lives. That what we were last year or but 1 or even 10 years ago is not what we are today because of what we have been through. Because we have all changed. So change is something you must never escape talking about. So let's talk about more and more change. Just to set again the background of our discussion today, I just want to go through some background info about change management. I'm sure you've heard this before somewhere, maybe in your MBA class or in your training at KIM, just to see where this all comes from. To define it simply, I found a quote by John Hokota, a change management scholar. He defines change as simply a set of basic tools or structures intended to keep any change effort under control, full stop. So there are some tools, some structures, some strategies here and there you can apply to maintain the change effort under control, not to interfere with what you're trying to achieve, because we all have visions, we have objectives and goals we want to achieve, but because we must manage change, how do we do it? How can we keep it under control, not to interrupt our movement towards our vision, that's what we need to do about managing change. So think about strategies, procedures that you can use to manage change that can guide you, can guide us as we transition towards our desired result. Of course, we are here in business, and here we want to make profit, we want to grow and increase, and that should not stop because of change. It's how we manage and navigate the change that will give us our end result. So I hope I won't lecture, I'll just discuss. I'm not normally, I try and switch over lecturing and just having a discussion. So let's just agree and see what type of change we have in the world today, in our business world. And there seem to be just two of them. Luckily, they're just two. The first one is what we call the unplanned reactive change. This is where you're reacting to a particular emergent thing that's happening in this environment. So it's unplanned, you didn't plan for it. And they are various. There could be, sudden change in management or leadership in the organization or ownership. There could be a war outbreak, a pandemic outbreak, things you didn't foresee earlier that you can put and say together, let's plan for this. The second one is what you all know is a planned change, what you all love to do as leaders, as business owners. It's proactive change that you respond to things you anticipate in the environment. So those are the only two we can talk about. But here, we want to focus mostly on what you want to plan, proactive change, which must be ongoing throughout. As business owners, as managers, as leaders, this is what we must always focus on doing because, again, our world is turbulent, there's dynamism. What you knew last year or last month will change in the next few hours, what you know. So we must think about how we must plan and be proactive about plan management and be very, very focused about it. Yeah, but now, how do we start planning? How do we start knowing we need to change? As our quote says here, how do you start knowing what is turbulence and where it's coming from? So just remind you of those who understand this concept that change is driven by the environment that we operate from. Whether in our own personal life, at work, socially, it comes from somewhere. Something triggers change in where you are. And you live in about 4 or 5 environments, and I just go over them right now. Here in business, we talk about the first environment. You can see a small circle there right in at the center. That is a farm or business environment. This is what is your business. This is your company where you are, the 4 walls of KRM, the 4 walls of maybe KBL. It is what happens there among your processes, your business. And here, whatever change can happen here, it's easier to control because it's within your control of what you do, changing your structure, changing your maybe promoting people, changing incentives. Those are things that you can control because that environment there is controlled and you can manage it by yourself. And then you go to the outer layer. The second level where it comes from is again called operating environment. That is where, those are the ones you engage with, people that you engage with every day, stakeholders like customers, suppliers, those who bring value and will give value back for your business, okay? And the further it goes, it gets bigger and bigger, as you can see, and more dynamic. Then you have the industry environment or your sector industry environment. It could be service sector, manufacturing sector, ICT. So depending on what your business is, that is facing the same thing that others are facing in your environment, in your industry. If you're a trainer, if you are a contractor, others have the same issues at the same time. Then you got the larger one, the outer one there that we have called the external environment. This is what is now beyond you. It's bigger than you and anybody else. It's global, it's regional, it can be the country. And this is where you lose much of the control because everybody is affected. Whether it's a business, a Juakali, your own personal life, it affects all of you at the same level. So for you to understand and say, where is my change coming from here? And then you can know how to tackle it. But ideally here, let's look at the outer layer of the environment that we're discussing today. The global one, that is we all know and all face. It's basically an equalizer. It could be in finance, it could be anywhere, but as long as something is changing in that environment, it affects you in one way or another. But now, how do you understand and start saying, what can I look out for? How can I now start determining what is changing and how do I start planning for this change to manage the change? Again, so something here that you all maybe have had before, we have an acronym called PESTEL, PESTEL. It's purely a guide to show you, to help you scan and categorize the elements of the environment you're going to face. And most of you know this very well. The first one being the P, stands for the political environment. These are to do with the government issues of policy, about tax policy, about where you, like now in Kenya here, we have our own government policy on tax, about how we are going to govern our elections. And of course, you all know this year, we have one thing we're all facing. We're going to be voting for new leaders coming in August. So things to do with your government issues in the region, in the country where you are, that affect all of you equally. And of course, second one is the E, that stands for economic issues. These are about money matters, economy, economic growth, the interest rates, inflation rates that affect the environment where you're operating from. Whether it's Uganda or Rwanda or Kenya, they're all different. You can be in KIM, maybe you have Rwanda, they have their own economic issues, so does Kenya. So understanding where you are and what affects you in your business. Then the S stands for social. These are people aspects, about demography, population, health matters, lifestyles, cultural barriers, anything about people and society is what is called the S, or the social aspect of the PESTEL. And then moving on the T, technology, is about automation, digital world, smart factory, smart everything to do with tech. That is where you want to focus on. And then the last E is on the environment. You can't ignore that. We must care for environment. It's about climate change that we all face and the effects that affect us in businesses or our own personal lives, about pressure groups. Anything about the environment comes in here, and you cannot ignore the environment at all, no matter what you're doing in your business. Then lastly, we have the L, which stands for legal matters to do with the environment. This is where you have antitrust laws, consumer laws, copyright laws, health and safety. Any legal aspect that comes from the environment is what dictates how you operate. So having seen that you have now your environment scanned, you can say, now for me to change, what has shifted in what aspect of the PESTEL? And here we keep saying, never leave sight of the PESTEL. Always have an eye or a finger to scan these 5 elements, because any of them can shift and it affects you in one way or another. So ask yourself, what has shifted or what's about to shift? Or what are we seeing will shift in politics of the country, for example? How will that affect my business or we as a company? Is it to our favor or against us? Okay, it's either for or against. You stand to gain or to lose, and how you adjust and align yourself to manage that change in a smart manner, not to affect your navigating towards your vision. So once you understand what has shifted and how it affects your business, what's the next thing to do? We are managing change here. So of course, a lot of planning must come in. It's the first thing you must do. You must plan for the change. Very, very important here. So you're scanning your environment, you're seeing what has been shifting, and you must plan for it. So as you plan for the change, there are 2 things you want to plan for here. You want to plan on how to navigate the change. And by that, we recommend you plan and see what models for change you're going to use. We'll discuss about that later as we go along. This is about the how of how I'm going to manage my change. As I said earlier, there could be many changes going on that you're going to affect: change of products, change of location, new developments in terms of technology, automation, or new structures. There are many kinds of change you can adopt in a company, but it all starts with planning and seeing how do we do it. The second thing you must plan for is how you're going to manage your business to change, because this is something you must always anticipate as a manager. There will be resistance to change. Change is a hard thing. We don't like change. We are human beings. We love being in our comfort zones, the way we have always worked for the last 10 years. So expect that to happen. And it's not a very, very bad thing, by the way, you'll see as we go along. So you must plan for those 2 things: how to navigate your change by models and how to manage your resistance to change. Let's start with the first one and see how we can plan or what to do. So I brought in the idea of how to manage your change using the change models. These are nothing but roadmaps that help you, that guide you navigate from where you are to where you want to be. So you have your current state, and you have seen where you are. You don't want to be there for a longer time because it's not suiting you very much. You're not happy about your bottom line or how you're working, because right now in the environment of a business, the dynamic tells you if you stay here for a bit longer, you will either perish or close down or lose out. Then you have your vision. So what this model tells you is how to go about to get into that vision, where you want to be, what good looks like in a good manner that shows you go this way, you go here, navigate here, do this, control here. So they're just roadmaps to help you. And these are many and developed in time. They have come from the 1900s. These were developed by the management scholars from a long time ago, and they have developed and they have increased. So what you're seeing there are only a few of them that have been noted so far. There are more than this. And these are nothing but guidelines that people have done research. They have been tried and tested. They have worked. But you know what? They're not always perfect. They're just guides. Yeah. But they at least help you start from somewhere. So for you, you want to understand, ask yourself, so which one suits my change or my organization? Which one can I follow easily to adapt that can bring it to the end to a good vision of change? Which one adds value to me, or which can I apply and I can see success? So they're all these, yeah? Read about them, of course, later when you get home, but I just want to share a few of them that are familiar to most of us, or to me myself, that I've used before. And I'll just share the first one. It's called the Lewin's Change Model. Maybe a few of you have come across this one. This was brought by a man called Kurt Lewin, a psychologist in Germany. He saw change as a three-step model, a change management, a three-step movement, a three-pronged step. And what he said was, he'll use easy language, simple language to understand that anybody can relate to it, because he saw change as a first level. The first thing you must do is to unfreeze. Unfreezing here relates to things that have been stuck for a long time in the culture, the way of doing things, the behaviors. Because they are so stuck, they have to be released. They have to be unfrozen, like how you unfreeze maybe a piece of meat to make for dinner. So by releasing and unfreezing old cultures or old ways of behavior, you're trying to create some urgency for change. You're trying to advocate for change of behavior or change of processes or change of location. What you want to feel as a change is what you want to advocate for. So you're here telling everybody where we are right now is not a good place. We are losing market share. We're losing customers. We are losing our bottom line. We have to shift to a place where we can make more growth, have more customers, and not just survive, but succeed in our end goal. So you're locating and making guys uncomfortable about where they are. And then second step, he said, he called it change or implement or move. So once you have got everybody understanding where we are, what we are doing, where we are changing, and all that, you go further and keep communicating and dispelling all kinds of rumors going around, show that this is our vision for change, this is what you want to achieve. This is where now you start now empowering people, with the right skills, with the right resources. You want to now inject what you require to have as a resource for the budgets that are being released. You're trying to model the change yourself, and changing behaviors that begin to take some shape, and there's some changes that are happening already. You can start seeing some good success values coming in. So for example, if you're doing a merger is a big change you're doing. You're merging KIM and somebody else, for example, because you have seen a strength somebody else has that you want to latch on to achieve your growth. So here is when you're now coming together, look at the cultures you have between the two organizations, how they can merge, look at your policies, try and bring in the leaders together to start discussing what we want to achieve. So that's where the real change begins. And the last step, he called it the refreeze. Very simple again, refreezing. So you have now new behaviors you have developed. You have a new procedure, you have new automations or new tech, or new structures, or a new venture, or a new brand somewhere. You want to now make it to instill that as a part of your new going forward way of life. New behaviors, new procedures, a new company from the two that you had before as a merger, now it's one organization called something else. So everything here is now going to be refrozen to become an anchored way of life in the culture of the organization moving forward, okay? So of course, here you support further, you keep sustaining and communicating about the change, because here communication never stops about the change. You must communicate why and where we are going, the vision, and get as much buy-in as possible to reduce your resistance for change. That's what Kurt Lewin saw as a model for change in 1947. But now looking back after all those years, there's some reviews about the Lewin's change. There is a man himself, Kurt Lewin. So the reviewers of this who have done this before, have gone through this entire model, have said a few pros and cons. The first one being, it's a very easy and simple way of modeling a change process. It's just 3 steps, 1, 2, 3. You refreeze the old, create a new thing, and then make it stick in the culture. Very simple. But however, the reviewers have said it's a very, very linear way of working, very linear and very straitjacket and rigid way. It does not have enough detail about what and how to do. It just gives you a list of things, what you can do, but nothing about the how and the when, you want to hear a bit more. And also it says that it's a bit more combative compared to nurturing. Combative here means it's more to do with structures. You're trying to organize the structures and things and not much about people and behavior. And again, as I said earlier, it's about behaviors. Change is mostly people-driven. It's people who will drive your change, not the machines you have or the structure. So you have to have the people element in your model. Very, very important. They work together. Systems, structures, and people. Okay, that's about the Lewin's change model. Let's see another one that has been used widely, and maybe a few of you have it before. It's called the Kotter's 8-step model of change, designed by Professor George Kotter in 1996. He's also a management and change management scholar. And this came from a place where he did research and understanding why companies fail in managing change, because he kept seeing companies starting a change and they fail somewhere. And he said he'll do a research and say, why are they failing? What are the issues? And he found that there were 8 mistakes that companies make as they manage their change. And he thought to himself, if this can be corrected, these errors can be corrected, then surely there can be a building block or building blocks for successful change management. And that's what he did. And he came up with the 8 steps of change management. As you can see them, they're all there. They're 1, 2, 3, they're all sequentially well arranged to 8. But in brief here, they're in 3 parts. The first part of stage 1, 2, and 3 is where you try and create a climate of change. You're trying to get the buy-ins from as many as possible at why we need to change, creating an urgency for change. That where we are is a bad place. We are losing market share. We're going to close down soon. We lose our jobs. So you're trying to get everybody very, very, very uncomfortable where they are. And then secondly, here you want to form a guiding team of experts within the organization who are managers and leaders who understand the environment, the pastel, understand things about the people there, understand how to collect data, to be able to guide this change, because it's not a one-man show. You cannot manage a change agenda as a CEO. You need to have a strong team of leaders, managers, and very, very like minds. And the same team will create a vision for change, because everything starts and ends with a vision. That is strategy, and so its vision is change. You want to say, this is where we are. What does better look like? In a very simplified way, in one paragraph, few lines that everyone can understand. So paint a very nice, simple picture. Don't make it very, very elaborate, and use simple language and show people where we are is not good, but better looks like this. It's better for all of us, the organization, for our customers, and everyone stands to benefit. And then you go and engage them and enable them to start empowering action, communicating the vision. And of course, that continues the entire circle, communicating why we are changing, where we are changing, what you want to achieve, what is your role, and make it very clear, because people are different at every time, because there's some who will catch on very, very, very fast. They can become your change agents. And some take time to accept and understand, because it's change. Change is it's not fun. Why are we changing? Must we change now? So you get to hear such questions, and they must be addressed, because if you don't address them at this level here, you'll have high resistance. And then you're empowering for action. This is where you're now training, empowering, injecting the resources required. You want to, if it's a new system, you bring it in, automation, rearranging the structures. This is where the action now starts. And then on stage 6, you want to start seeing some very, very short-term wins or short-term gains, because something has begun happening. What is going well so far? Can we pick a few things that are going well? And yes, you'll find them. For example, if you're trying to change your culture of customer service, you want to improve your rates. They were quite low, and you want to achieve about maybe 20% more by the end of the first year. And then 6 months down the line, are there any short wins? Have you grown by any percentage? Maybe by 10%, 30%? That's a good gain. So and see what has not gone well, and what can you maybe readjust and try and correct to move and find you a win. And stage 7 is where you start now to building on the wins that you had earlier and make them bigger wins, okay? Now you go for the big kill. we want 30% more as we planned. So you're pushing the short-term gains to become the long-term gains. And then the last stage is where you now make it stick, or you're now trying to ingrain the new change, the new process, the new way of working, or the merger as a lasting change. So that is what Kota saw as 8 steps of change. This has worked very, very well in most global organizations. They have done very, very well, and they have seen some good results. But as I said earlier, it's never perfect. They always have their pros and cons. So there's John Kota, Professor John Kota. So the reviews have shown a few of the pros and cons. The first one says, it's a simple and logical step-by-step model, okay? It starts from 1 to 8 progressing on, and every step is building upon the other one in a logical manner. And that's what you want to have, something logical that follows well. It also says here that it's a very well detailed and explained model. It explains the what, the why, the who, and how. It gives you exactly what you require to do. It's a roadmap that tells you, when you get here, do this, yeah, add this, watch out for this, look out for that. So it's very, very well detailed and easy to follow. And as compared to the earlier one we saw for Lewin's, Kat Lewin's model, it includes behavioral and structural elements of change, because behaviors drive change, not just a structure. People drive change. So you have to add people. If you don't add people there, it means you're leaving out a very, very big element of change that can cause your success or your failure in your change process. But however, there are also the cons. Some say there are 2 sequences. These are very, very sequential. They are too progressive. You know, they must add up like stage 1, 2, and 3. You can't skip any of them. You have to progress in the same sequence for you to succeed. That's one con. And one more says that there are too many steps, and it sounds like it's taking a long, long time. You know, step 1 to 8, it can take a long time. Maybe they want a shorter kind of version that can make it faster because you want to create some early changes. But anyway, it's up to you as a company to see which one among the ones we discussed here, or the ones we have seen earlier, or the ones that are still emerging, because they are emerging. Again, we are in a dynamic place where there's nothing staying static. We have come from 2000, we have come all the way, and some more things are happening. There are more people who are developing more and new and more smarter procedures or approaches to how to manage change. And I want to share one that I have just come across a few years back that is called the Agile Approach of Change. So in the past, we had all these earlier ones here, 1920s, 40s, 50s, 1996. In the early 2000s, something came up that's called Agile. And as the word suggests, it's an agile way of managing, or an agile approach of how you manage your change. It came from a meeting or a development in the US in early 2000, when software developers came and stayed together, because software was a dynamic thing at that era. You launch a software this morning, tomorrow somebody will launch a different one that has a higher level than yours. So dynamic and very, very turbulent. So they said, as opposed to having the same old way of looking at change, starting from step 1 and moving on, that takes a longer time, can you try and make it more agile and have incremental changes in short waves? As opposed to having a long wait and planning to the very, very end of the goal, is it possible to keep launching small gains, small launches, small changes at short waves? Because, for example, a software like what they were launching, you launch one today, you're called Company X. By next month, Company L will launch something better than yours. So you can't have a whole line of long waiting of 6 months to launch something. You will launch it, but yeah, it will be too old or outdated by the time you launch it. So they thought, let's make it a more flexible way of agile applying change and delivering many different softwares at different times along the path. Yes, you want to make it very, very perfect, but sometimes you can even try and break it in between and say, let's launch one version now and see how it works. If it's a good game, let's build and get a better one next month. Yes. So it's just a break away from classical to sequential methods of delivering one wave. So this idea of this agile approach by the software companies was adopted by the change managers in the early millennium years. And there's those who can actually tell us today that it has worked for their change. It is agile and flexible. How you approach and manage your change can be adaptable to agile ways of working. So ideally here, you're shifting completely from the classical approach of the long-term planning all the way to the end, and you're trying to flex the end goal to bring it closer, to give you some gains incrementally. Yeah. Yes, you know what you want to achieve, but is it possible to bring it closer? Maybe you want to get 100% or 50% at that end, but can you get 20% earlier and get there 10 later coming on? So this allows for a leaner, more collaborative and flexible way of approaching change. So ideally here, it's about speed versus a prolonged planning, okay? The focus is actually faster return on investment. You can get faster sales earlier gains, deliver faster and more often to your market, to avoid having a gap where they're waiting for you to launch something and somebody's doing something else in your place, and you're losing out your market share. So you're always feeding your market with something every now and then gradually, okay? It's a new product, a new system, a new software, maybe a new app, and it's progressively building up because you're collecting data to see how the first wave of launching or the first wave of change has gone, and you're adapting and changing. So it's more collaborative, it's more flexible, it's more leaner. And yes, it's true, some items, some things cannot always go in the same way, cannot apply in the agile, but it can be tried. And those who have tried have said, yes, it has been a successful one because ideally, you always bring something to the market. So how it looks like is like this, the agile approach. The classical approach says you have something you want to change, you have it there, then you have your end goal all the way there, maybe down 8 steps of quarter or whatever you're using, and you're planning and trying to bring in change to have a bigger impact at the end of it all to say we have done well, success, done. But what Agile argues here is saying, we have this thing we want to launch, but can we bring this end goal closer and have incremental change waves that we can review and find if they're working or not, but not leave our market waiting for too long, or not leave our clients waiting for too long and others will come and take them away, and get some gains as we go along. So ideally, yes, you have an original end goal you have there, but as you're launching or you're trying to bring new changes at incremental stages, you are amending your end goal because possibly at the end of the year that you had planned to have, something has happened in the environment. It's dynamic again. Something has changed. So you're trying to amend that goal and stay relevant as you continue to incrementally produce change. You learn some lessons, you go off, you come back, perfect, and get something better, but at least you're showing some incremental success stories in change. Now, so in summary here, what Agile says, you're flexing the end goal to bring solutions earlier and early return on investment incrementally, or enables faster and more frequent delivery of smaller changes in the market. It also brings a very big impact on delivering cycles, which has a very big impact because you're not losing out. You're spending money and it comes back incrementally. So that has been a shift that has been seen by those who've tried before with success. So how do you go about doing this agile approach? Excuse me. Of course, here you start with vision. Vision is everything. You must understand and explain what does better look like from where we are. What do you want to achieve? And of course, the first thing in Agile, they say you have to have the boldness to innovate and experiment. Yeah, because here, if it's in very, very turbulent environments that are very, very unpredictable, it's high dynamic. So anything can happen tomorrow, it can change. So try and experiment and make it work. And your starting point is those that are going to bring you higher valuable outcomes, higher ROI, maybe efficiency, maybe a result that comes in that makes a big impact for your business or your customers. Then you roll out, okay? You roll out and then you evaluate the progress, the success. Is it working well? Are there any issues? What are the clients saying? What do they want us to add there? And then you collaborate now with the teams within and without, how you can adapt and create something better. And then you keep running out again. Second round, third round, and evaluate. That is what Agile says. Are there benefits of Agile? Yes, there are benefits of Agile so far. Those who have applied it have some good records, and they have said it's a very quick way of getting outcomes, very, very fast, early returns on ROI, or even just the things you want to achieve. Efficiency, customer satisfaction, it brings a faster return. And also, it assures faster and more frequent deliverables of change or maybe something to the customers, the market you want to serve, product or services. It also helps build a momentum for change and motivation. This is a very, very key element of change. You want to have momentum. People are always thinking about change and the drive to keep changing. It further supports innovation. It's a very, very big plus for change because you're always learning and refining, experimenting, innovating, yeah? And you have to stay on that path because the behavior of innovation is what you want to have when you change and moving forward beyond the change. And then lastly, it allows for frequent feedback. After every wave of success or every wave of a change, you must review and build up and decide on how the next delivery will look like, the next change, the next level of change. So you're always changing. But like other approaches, it has its own challenges as Agile, and there are 3 that have been picked up so far. It has been seen to have too many frequent waves of change, too many segments of change continuously that can lose control as a manager. You're looking at that element, next time again, you can lose touch of what's going on. There are too many sometimes for some to manage at a go. Number 2, it lacks economy of scale because here you're injecting a resource at every stage of the change. As opposed to when you're having just one injection for everything, for the trainings, for the human resource, for the skills, you're always injecting something. So it's hard to like budget and get some good gains of economy of scales. And thirdly, it has a high cost for feedback because feedback will cost you money, cost you time and money. You must review, do a survey, conduct, analyze, understand what they're saying, as opposed to having just one review every now and then. That's Agile. But now ask yourself, does this work for you, your business, or your company? What we have seen has been seen so far. This works well for new ventures, innovative or experimental kind of ventures in very, very, very high and volatile environments where change happens very, very fast. For example, in software industries or in apps, developing an app for your industry because they're always changing. Or where you have new models of something, a model of something has come today, like the motor industry, like Toyota. Different models are coming out every now and then. That can work because you're trying to progress on, you're trying to bring in something new, improve, because if you don't do that, somebody else will do it and take away your market. So very, very high experimental kind of ventures in tablet areas, this works very, very, very well. But however, if you're sure about your end goal, for example, a merger or an acquisition or a new system, automation, that you're sure is what you want to achieve, and you can plan your resources, you can plan your structures progressively and build up, then you can go for the older classical approach we just discussed earlier. That can work. But who knows, you can try out a few on this end of Agile or something on the older classical versions. But in any case, I'm believing that there are more that are being designed even currently as we talk, because people are looking for smarter ways of managing their change. It will never end. Change is a continuous chain. And of course, if you can find and develop newer ways of developing and managing your change, that's how smart you're going to get in how you can manage your change. So let's see how this pans out as we go along in the next few years or the next few months and see what else comes on, what they launch next. That's the first thing you plan for in managing change, is about the models or the approach of how you're going to navigate your change. Second thing you must plan for, I said earlier, is how you're going to manage your response to change. Anticipate how people are going to behave when it comes to change. It's behavioral. People are very, very high when it comes to change. No one likes to change. Think about yourself in the last few years and how you had to change and what you had to go through. When COVID came to Kenya or in the world, our lives changed forever. We had to wear masks everywhere. We had to wash our hands. We had to distance ourselves. And we kept resisting and saying, I don't want to wear a mask. I can't breathe. We found reason why we don't want to do it. That is why you must manage this change, the resistance to change, because you don't do it, it will affect everything else you do. Let's see how and why people resist change. The first and most common one is called the parochial self-interest. That is common for everybody. We all love ourselves and our own self-interests, what we love to do. The way we have always worked, where we've always worked, where we always live, and how we have had our life. We are now out in our life. So we are thinking about this change might take away something from me. I gain to lose something. My position, my title maybe, my influence, or something will be lost and no one wants to lose. So we want to guard our own self-interests. So we do what? We resist. Number two, it can be because of misunderstanding or lack of trust. In terms of not understanding why we are changing, must we change? What do you intend to gain, or lack of trust in the change, that the change will solve our problems, or lack of trust in the leadership that is maneuvering this change, And thirdly, poor communication has changed. The way you understood the change was poorly communicated to you. It's not very clear, the language, the way it came through. So you're thinking, I'm not sure with this thing. I'm not sure about this change. Let's try and see what happens. And fourthly, it's about tolerance of level of change. Some are high tolerance of change, some are low. We're all different human beings. Some see change and they will run with it. Some take time to understand, to accept, to buy in, That can be a very, very big major reason for resistance of change. And for others, if our own ideas of how change should look like, how it should be done, how it should be made, who should be involved, it's all about opinion and perspective about how we think about change to be done. So behavioral change is the first thing we'll address here because it's the most critical and the most common result you'll have in your change. And this being the first one, it can affect all levels of employees. Even the managers can resist change. They are human beings, remember? Not just the lower level, but even the senior managers here can resist change. And what you look at here are the 4 behaviors we call the 4 Ds that reflect that we have the behavioral resistance to change. But the first thing I'll say here, I put a keynote here, I've said approach this management of change with empathy. Empathy here, I'm saying, be understanding, try and relate with these people because they're human beings. They're all different, but you're required to have them on board for us to be able to manage this change well. The 4 behaviors, I'll go through them easily, very sequentially here. The first one is called disengagement. That's the first and most common behavior that shows that these people are resisting the change. This is where you're psychologically withdrawn from the process of change. You're very, very withdrawn. You're there physically, but not mentally, You're not addressing and engaging in the process. As we say, you're not a very happy camper in this. You are there saying, yes, we'll do, what next, but you're not engaged. So how do you manage this kind of behavior? The first thing, of course, is empathy. And you want to ask the people who are behaving in this manner to address the issue. What is the issue? You look withdrawn. Why aren't you engaging in the change? Is there a problem? And let them speak out. It could be maybe because they're not understanding the change, miscommunication, understanding the vision or where they belong. So communicate again, review the entire thing, engage them, assure them, and then review their engagement thereafter, because thereafter maybe you'll see a difference in how they engage in their work and the change process. This is the most common type of a result to change. Number 2 is education, where this becomes a threat to your identity as a person in the way you work. Maybe your position, maybe your influence, your control over your department, for example. It's a very, very key behavior in senior levels of management, I must say, in my experience. Because, for example, maybe you're being called before head of unit, and now you're being called the team leader. So you think that the word head has gone away now, team sounds smaller, So you feel like your control has been weakened, has been reduced. You feel insecure about your position. Now you're vulnerable, you're very, very, shaky, and you tend to click the past of what you were before. So you hear words like, before I was in control of all these people, this department, before I achieved all these things, but now I don't know, So you feel a loss of something. How do you address this? Again, empathy, and then listen. Tell them, I sense you're a bit insecure about your position, and why is that? Let them talk, yeah? Maybe it's about the clarity of where they belong or their role in the change. Sometimes it requires them to be given a different role or a role in the key management areas of the change management. Put him in a role where he can see his relevance is renewed, I'm in this change process now as a leader of this team. So they actually feel a bit more, a bit more respected. And they have a role, they have a relevance when it comes to this entire process. The third behavior is disenchantment or unhappy or anger, okay? This is a very, very, very dangerous place to be. Watch out for this one. It's expressed with anger, and it can start with low tones of verbal that come now on the surface later that are negative, and they're very loud, and they're full of negativity, It's like poison. This one is, you want to find this very, very early, because if you don't do that, it can become contagious. They can rally a whole group to come against or sabotage your entire change, So the first thing here is to put away this group far away from everybody else, very, very far away. Let them come down and address why are they not on board with you? Why are they angry about this change? You know, why the anger? Why the poison? And let them talk, okay? Listen to all their issues. Some could be insecurity, some could be lack of trust, some could be just feeling they don't want to accept this change. Some are just refusing to change. And then you address them, okay? You start by saying why we are changing, why must we change, what is it good for you? Start from scratch, and then you review. If they still continue in the same unhappy and angry mode, it might come where you say, okay, you know, we have done everything we can to accommodate you. We are trying to explain what you're doing for you, but I think you don't want to stay with us. You're not on board, so please kindly, we'll ask you to leave. And when you say that, you'll be surprised about how they'll turn around and say, yeah, we can go on, let's continue. Sometimes just one guy who wants to get a whole group to come with him to stop this change, they'll come back on board. Yeah? So watch out for this one early enough before it becomes poison to spoil the entire mood of the whole change agenda. And lastly, this validation stage. This is where now there's ambiguity, you're disoriented, you're not sure about the change, you're a bit lost, you know. You're always asking things like, what are we doing now? What are they saying? What did they say? You know, you're not sure where you belong in this change, yeah? And you're always feeling out of place and lost. You're like a robot just going around the motions, hearing things, and you're always anxious. So here again, of course, have some empathy and address the ambiguity. Why are you feeling lost in all this? What is not clear about this change? Sometimes it's just reassurance, or they're a bit slow in adapting to change. They're trying to process the entire thing, you know, step by step, processing for the order, but they'll come on board. So reassure them, communicate again why it's good for them, and show them where they belong in this change and how they fit in, and not to fear, not to be anxious, but sometimes it may require to even have somebody else intervening for you, you know, maybe a psychologist or somebody who's good in talking to people like a HR manager, because some areas of behavior can go beyond a manager. You might require to add some more people there to have a stronger, more, you know, complete team to help people counter the behaviors. So those are the 4 behaviors of reasons to change, and they can be addressed in those manner, but in summary, this is how you can address the behavior, the reason to change in behavior. The first and foremost is educate and communicate. It must start with educating the people. 1, what is the change? What is the problem? Why are we changing? What do we want to achieve? Where are we going? How are we doing it, you know? And communicate the same process. And always this continues throughout the entire cycle. Unless they understand why the change, why they're not sure about it, the other steps will be very, very hard to manage. But the first thing, you must get the buy-ins, understanding change. Why change, what, where, and how. All the insights must be made very clear at the very beginning. Secondly, you can manage it by participation and involvement. Involve people who are resisting change. Give them some roles or some key areas to play in the change process where they can be involved and focus and see that they're part of the whole system, part of the whole process. And yes, they're important and they belong here. That can help you. Thirdly, support, facilitate them, because sometimes people need to be encouraged a bit more. Motivation is a bit low sometimes. Show them the way, listen to them, encourage them, maybe even just coach and mentor them about change. They require some skills to be address those as well. But support, encourage, motivate as fast as possible, because sometimes resistance comes because they feel they're alone, they feel very, very lonely, left out. So encourage, motivate them. Again, these are human beings. It takes work to motivate human beings, mainly in change. And then fourthly, you can negotiate and agree with them some things. You can find a way of saying, okay, these guys are resisting, but you know what? Let's give you some incentives here. We want to improve our sales, or we want to improve our customer service levels from this to that. If you give me 10% the next 2-3 months, you shall get rewarded. And you can buy them in that way, because they will say, okay, there's something from you there. Let's try and see if it works. And as they adapt in that change, they'll see something is changing and say, yeah, this change is actually happening, you know. I got my reward, but seriously, I think I should be in the team. And number 5, you can manipulate and co-opt or invite. This is where you must be very, very clever as a leader, you know. You must start learning how to be political about the company. Think about how you can play with their minds, not badly, but try and influence them in many ways. For example, There are those earlier gainers, earlier buy-ins, those people who just understand and they're for you and they're for the change. They can be used as your change agents at every level where there's resistance. Yeah, let them go there and convince people to them. This thing is working very well. You know, it's a good thing for us in their own language as they network with them the way they know how. Yeah, they can model for them the change and they can see if this guy here is convinced, maybe I can try this thing. Because they've been hearing about leaders saying this is a good thing, but now one of them is showing, you know, that he's buying in, it might influence them. Or even co-opt them into becoming change agents or take part in the change as well. And then lastly, the last resort here you want to use is coercion. This is where you say, well, okay, we have done everything else we can for you. We have given you education, we have involved you, but you're still resisting here. But you know what? This ship must sail with or without you. Yeah, so are you with us? Are you on board? This is how we are going. If not, I'm sorry, you may have to go. That is the last option. It's very, very sad, but if it happens, it may be good for you because sometimes you're carrying luggage, extra luggage that don't even help you as you move along. You'll always be resisting. And that's where become behavior resistance. Now, second type of resistance is called systemic resistance. This one has nothing about it's about the system. People have behaved very well, they're buying, but it's about how the system is able to be competent. It's passiveness of the system within the company. So your system has not been able to have full capacity to be able to bring the entire change. It could be your system, your structures are not very ready to accept the new change. You have red tape protocols that are still there hanging that will hold back your change. It could be about the resources you have in place. You have inadequate budgets, inadequate resources where they cannot even take you halfway down the line of your change. So everything is about the system. It's about insight, resources, people, human resources. It's like saying, let's go for team building in Mombasa over the weekend. Yeah, we meet here, maybe a van ready for us. So we come there with our sunglasses and our sun hats, and then the car will not start. Why? It was never serviced. No one thought this car is going far away. Can we service and see if things are okay? And that's it. Or somewhere along the way in Kibwezi, the fuel runs out, you know, in complete capacity. It's a big scandal to have a leader or managers who roll out a change agenda or a process and prepare everything else. You have the models in place, behaviors are matching the change, and then inside that place, inside the company, you have a structure that's not accepting to move, to support this change. This must be addressed at the very, very beginning of the plan for change. Before you even start rolling out anything else, you start with this and prepare for the change. So thank you very much, everybody, for being here with me. My name is Nancy Mutonyi, and I am with Zakon Consultants. You can reach us if you discuss further on this topic or any other in management on those contacts here. And I will now take it over to Brian for the Q&A, and let's see how we can engage together. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Nancy, for that enlightening presentation. I think you've done justice to the topic, and let me pass the feedback from what is coming in on the chat box before we go into the question and answer session. I think the take home for me, the three models that you explained in terms of the change models, Lewin's change model. I think that was a good one. Then there's the Kotter's eight-step model of change, and also the agile approach. I think those I took very keen interest on those models. Thank you for delivering a very good presentation. I'll move over to the question and answer session. I think I've seen a number of questions are coming in, and members, please feel free to submit your questions to the speaker. She will be able to respond to them. I'll go on to the first question. The first question is from Professor Iraki, and he's asking, are there any Kenyan models of change? So I think maybe Dr. Nancy, you can respond to that.
Yes, thank you for that question. I want to believe they are. They have come from learning, from lessons that have been learned with earlier models, and people have been crafting their own ways, and they have been managing to succeed with them. Yes, they are. I can't tell you who they are, but they are there. But I want to say that there are many that are already working, and some are being crafted right now as we speak, and they'll be rolled out very soon. You will see them because we have realized that we need to come from a very, very old place where we have had the same models, They must get smarter and more relevant to our change. Yes, they are. I want to be they are. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that feedback. I think I'll move over to the next question that's come from Francis Onyango, and is asking, what timeline would you recommend for a merger to embrace synergy?
Okay. A merger is a mega shift, is a mega change effort. There is not real timeline because it depends on how well they're able to come together. Because imagine these are two cultures, two structures, everything is in twos. And you want to make it come into one that can agree together to achieve something in common. So I would not say a timeline. It can take years. We've had mergers that are still going on through, they're still managing their change, like in CBA and NCBA. Is it NIC and CBA that are merged, have merged already? If you go in there, you'll find they're still trying to merge, they're still trying to create some issues here and there. They're trying to come together in a culture. It can take years. So there's no rush, there's no timeline for any kind of change. It's up to you to decide what it, as long as you get to the end of it, and as long as you're finding success in the long run, you're having some gains coming across. We cannot say that. Let's not rush change. Let's take it as it comes, because we're all different in terms of structure and behavior and people, and also how we are ready to accept that change. So years can be experienced, years. Not
okay,
months.
thank you. Thank you for that answer. I think members, based on my earlier request, kindly let's have the questions coming in. Moving over to the third question that has come from Mr. Sultan Amri. I think based on the times that we are operating in, I think it's more of a question based on the political landscape. And of all theories and practical life we experience, why do politicians never change? And he goes to insist on ask why. So I think maybe you can give us a bit of an explanation on our Kenyan political landscape based on that question.
If I heard you right, is it about politicians in Kenya or globally?
Globally and generally, but if you can give us both contexts, it would be appropriate. Okay,
I'm not in that sphere of politicians, but what I'll say is that it's, again, behavioral. You know, it's human beings, all right? And I assume for them, they want to be in leadership, they want to gain something. They want to be in a leadership scope, they have their own self-interest they want to guard. So for them, it's about themselves, and they will use their own ways, mechanism of how they want to achieve them. But change for them will only come if they realize that I can get better. I can be a better leader, for example. What must I change? Having been here for 5 or 6 years, what have I done? What have I brought to the table to show that I'm a good leader? And then decide on their own volition that they want to change something about themselves, you know, the delivery systems, you know, the style of leadership maybe, or how they are able to inspire people. So they're all differently phrased. These are, again, human beings. So it's an individual kind of initiative they have to come up. But of course, as we know them, they are there for their self-gain, and they use their own mechanisms to find what they want. But for them, change must come from inward. I'm sure they've had such problems like we have had today about change, but it's up to them to embrace it and how it can make them better leaders and better politicians. That's all I can say for now for that.
Okay, thank you. And then on to the last question. And members, please feel free to give us more questions for the speaker to respond to. I'll go on to the last question that's come from Kenneth Jeru, and he's asking, is change on a very well-written strategy paper better, or change should be viewed as innate?
Say it again, the last line.
Is change on a very well-written strategy paper better, or should change be viewed as innate? Something, and it goes to explain something lived by all every day.
Yes, now change is it's a continuous process. Everything must change, has been changing, and you cannot stop change, even our own selves. What you were last year, the other year ago. So change is not just something you write in a paper or something you just plan. You have to activate it, okay? You have to plan for it. You have to understand what you're changing, why you're changing, and what you want to gain. What is your change vision? So once you script that out, of course, it must be in writing somewhere to help you and guide you. Then you must bring it to action. It must be seen to be acting, to be doing something, to be gaining something. Just writing it out in paper is not enough, but you must make it a part of your lifestyle to want to change, to want to get better. And for us here, change is about getting better, progressing, moving forward, not losing our focus on what you want to be, and trying to navigate the entire process, not to shake our end goal, to get better, to improve. Yes, put it down in paper, but also activate it and apply all you have learned, all you have known. And the best way to change is only you who knows, because you know what you want to get. I hope I have answered that question.
Yes, that's a fair enough response. I think I've seen another question that has come in, and is seeking some clarification. Are there theories regarding change management? Were you able to get that? Okay.
Yes, there are theories about that by scholars of different levels. These have been now, of course, what they have been tested and found in research, and they have come up now with maybe ways of adapting to change. Research is continuous on how change theories can be adapted. Some are very, very classical, some are current ones. Yes, there are theories that they're still being tested. And you can find them among the scholars, the scholarly writings.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. I think I'll give you the last question that has come in, that is asking about what change approaches should SMEs in Kenya adopt in Kenya's hostile environment?
So for SMEs, like any other business, they have the same issues you face for an SME or for a large corporation. But maybe for them, they ask for themselves, what level am I at right now as an SME against what I want to achieve? And for them, it's understanding their market, understanding who they serve. There are small markets or big markets, and understanding how they want to grow them. And when they are faced with turbulent times, what can they quickly adapt, quickly change, or reformat to be able to stay on course to achieve their objectives, to achieve their sales, not to lose their customers, not to close down, but who are they addressing? Have at least 4 priorities. We must first, of course, think about our money, how we spend our money, our budgets, our customers and what they need. And also, how can we grow and expound, not just surviving this turbulent time, but how can we grow and progress and have more? SMEs, of course, are trying to scale up. They're trying to build more. They're trying to become better. But when faced with, of course, turbulent times, they feel the impact more than anybody else. It's about planning their budgets, planning their strategies in terms of addressing their markets, at what level, what needs to stay, what needs to go, and also continue to innovate, innovatively create something new, because your market is always demanding something. What can you bring in that's new? Innovate, create something, adapt some new changes, and of course, think about lean management, lean working structures, because you're a small enterprise. You don't want to overdo things. Stay lean and make it work for you and your clients.
Thank you very much, Nancy, for those responses. I think at this juncture, I will just sample a few of the comments that are coming in from the chat box, and members are very grateful for the presentation. I can see some comments here that stating a very insightful session on change management, very well delivered, and thank you very much. I think at this stage, we'll shift gears. I think I'll invite Dr. Murithi Ndegwa, Executive Director and CEO at KIM, to give us his closing remarks. Karibu Idi.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon once again, everyone. And thank you very much, Dr. Nancy Mutonyi, for that discourse that you've given us on the topic of today. We really do greatly appreciate. Let me appreciate first and foremost every one of us who attended this webinar today. At peak, I noticed we're about 50 or so, and that's not a small number. So thank you very much, all of you who came in for the webinar. Thank you, Dr. Nancy Mutonyi, for the discourse that you've given us on the topic of the day. Thank you for the examples that you also gave in. Thank you for the preparation that also you had put in place. And if I just sample some of the comments, some are saying very insightful session on change management. Great discussion. Thank you for the great presentation. And we all say the same thing. Thank you very much, Dr. Nancy Mutonyi. You've done an excellent job. We really do appreciate. We may call you again soon on another topic similar to what you presented today, and I'm sure members will really benefit. And so on behalf of the Kenya Institute of Management, we want to say thank you very much, Daktari. Thank you very much, members. please look forward to joining us once again Thursday next week, but one on another topic of interest. And if there's any particular topic you want us to give a discuss on, please do not hesitate to let us know. And for now, we want to say thank you very much. Have a blessed evening and bye for now.